Paul Brunton explains the world's perennial wisdom. In God's Image, the Overself. Video Series 4, Video Number 10. Presented by the Paul Brunton Philosophic Foundation. The entries in this video, enclosed with quotation marks, are taken from Paul Brunton's writings. All others are from Discerning the Real Through the Writings of Paul Brunton, an article by a PBPF board member, published in Ramana Ashram's Mountain Path, Fall 2014 issue. PB explains that the Overself, your soul or higher self, is truly an eternal image of world mind. Therefore, it is written in the Bible that God made man in his own image. The reference here could never have been to the lower aspect of a human, the petty creature who frets and fumes his or her way through life. The phrase fits finely, however, to the immeasurably higher aspect of this twofold species. Our body will die and disintegrate, but the creative idea of us will still remain in the world mind as our soul. It will not die. It's our real self, our perfect self. It is the true idea of us which is forever calling to be realized. It is the unmanifest image of God in which we are made, and which we have yet to bring into manifestation in our everyday consciousness. End of quotes. All beings are rooted in the world mind, and each has its own unique evolutionary path to unfold. Each has its own slice of the world idea pie, as it were. As beings within the world mind, we are divine children of the world mind and partake of the divine qualities and grandeur of the world mind, but not its amplitude, scope, and power. Each individual is like a ray of the sun, and serves to complete in form an aspect of the world idea. Analogously, PB calls this ray the Overself. On the one hand, the Overself is unchanging and eternally part of the world mind, and on the other, it presides over the incarnational series from unconscious creature to divinely inspired sage. PB tells us that the mysterious character of the Overself inevitably puzzles the intellect. We may appreciate it better if we accept the paradoxical fact that it unites a duality, and that therefore there are two ways of thinking of it, both correct. There is the divine being which is entirely above all temporal concerns, absolute and universal, and there is also the demi-divine being, which is in historical relation with the human ego. It is the inner or true self of every human, reflecting the divine being and attributes, an emanation from the ultimate reality, but is neither a division nor a detached fragment of it. It is a ray shining forth, but not the sun itself. All our finest emotions, our deepest wisdom, our creative faculties, our truth-discriminating intuitions come into being because of the Overself's central, if hidden, presence. End of quotes. The Overself of each person is distinct from that of another in the sense that each presides over a different series of reincarnations, presides over distinct destinies. It holds in latency the memory traces of the innumerable incarnations that in a sense distinguish one Overself from another. Each Overself also reveals different divine possibilities and manifests a unique genius. Like a single ray, it shines on a particular person and can be thought of as and experienced as presiding in the heart, though it is also the consciousness that encompasses the entire panorama of each person's experience. Whereas the world mind is like the sun, and shines on all equally. PB says that each person, therefore, has two faces. One is downturned toward the earth, but the other is upturned toward world mind. The first is the person, and the second is the Overself. End of quote. When we consider the nature of self, we find it to be threefold: the physical body, the personal consciousness, which consists of feelings, thoughts, emotions, desires, images, impulses, and the impersonal observer, which knows the first two categories as contents of consciousness. The body and personality are ephemeral, shifting phases of the self, and by themselves give no sense of an unchanging identity. The persistent and permanent sense of I that accompanies us throughout our life is a testament to the presence of the impersonal observer. Its presence gives us the illusion that we will live forever, because the Overself exists in eternity. While the series of reincarnations is a kind of immortality, it lacks the conscious, unbroken continuity that comes with Overself realization. This is true deathlessness, and is achieved by transcending the transient parts of self. PB describes our task. We have to penetrate to the inner workings of the mind to discover where the spark of contact with the Overself is glowing, and with that, find that a nobler outlook and a collaboration with the world idea can be created. End of quote. The personal consciousness that has evolved after so many incarnations with so much effort is not swept away in realization. It becomes subordinate to the Overself and exists in its awareness. It is one's identity as the Overself that supplants the former mistaken ego identity. The Overself is the divine element in humans. It is our place in the real, one in essence with world mind and mind, but distinguishable in function. PB says that we are still human beings, not gods, yet there is something godlike within us, and this we must find and cling to for our true salvation, our only redemption. If we do this, we will fulfill our purpose on earth, and then only will we find true peace of mind and an end to all this restless, agitated, uncertain mental condition. Study what this planet's best people have given us. It is no truer message than this. Seek for the divine within yourself. Return to it every day. Learn how to continue in it. And finally, be it. End of quote. The answer to the inquiry, who am I, awakens us to our nature as pure awareness, mind. This is the completion of the mystic quest. The answer to, what am I, is the complementary realization that our ego world are the temporal and spatial unfolding of the Overself's function as part of the world mind. Just as world mind is the eternal activity of mind, so too is the person world the everlasting activity of the eternal Overself. We are, from this perspective, divine participants in a divine drama. With this realization, one moves beyond mysticism and becomes a philosopher sage. Freed of egotism, the personality remains as a servant of the Overself. Instead of blocking the light that we are, the personality is now a vehicle of enlightened living. PB describes the benefit he gained from an early initiation into the Overself. There was a sloughing off of the old self, which was followed by a sense of immense relief. It was as if a tremendously heavy and burdensome topcoat had been thrown off my shoulders. The sense of being liberated was immeasurable. The ego's dominance was gone. I could see now how it had confined my thinking and dimmed my outlook. It was simultaneously a kind of death and also a kind of birth, or rebirth. For in that life which was essence, I felt that the wishes, desires, attachments, and ambitions of the unreal self were futile, unnecessary, and vain. PB concludes, "You can then say truthfully, knowing whereof you speak, a divine element lives in me. Far though this has taken you from the ordinary good person or ordinary pious person, but it is not enough. You need to go further so that you can attain the place where, obedient, purified, conscious of the world idea, you can add, 'This element now works in me.' With that, the ego's tyranny falls away." Quotes were taken from The Wisdom of the Overself and the Notebooks of Paul Brunton, Volume 6, Part 1, The Ego, Volume 14, Inspiration and the Overself, and Volume 16, Part 2, World Idea. Paul Brunton, 1898 to 1981, a best-selling British author of a dozen books, spent much of his early life researching the original sacred teachings of Western and Eastern spiritual traditions. He traveled the world to discover and communicate with Christian, Kabbalistic, Vedantic, Buddhist, Taoist, indigenous, and Sufi masters. Blending the richness of his own spiritual experience and inquiry with these ancient and contemporary teachings, he developed a philosophy and path of practice that suits life in the 21st century, one that expresses the greatest wisdom and love available to humankind. Regardless of how it is named, we each have a divine soul, an overself or higher self, that is with us here and now, waiting to be realized. Paul Brunton's writings are a source of deep spiritual guidance for all those interested in living a divinely inspired life.